Welcome to Ask the Experts here at Great Sports. My name's Jon Hutton. I'm the account manager here, and today we're talking about accessibility in sports travel. Hugely important. Sport is often about breaking barriers, but for many athletes, the biggest barrier isn't out on the pitch or on the court. It's getting to where they need to be. Accessible travel is not just about complying to rules and regulations. It's about ensuring dignified and independent travel for all. And today I'm joined by three panelists. I will let them introduce themselves. Mark, you're first.
Hiya, I'm Mark McCarroll. I used to be a full-time tennis player, wheelchair tennis player. I went to two Paralympic Games in London and to Rio. I then retired after the Rio Games, and now I'm a national coach working for the Lawn Tennis Association within wheelchair tennis performance team.
And William?
Hi, my name is William Pagna. I'm a national account manager, business sales, UK and Ireland. I am based here in Maidstone in Kent. This is not my national country, of course, you can hear the accent, but my adopted country. So I look after TMCs such as Grados as well as corporates. I've got some direct relationship with airports and a few more hats to wear as well at the same time. So thank you very much for having me.
And you wear two hats in regard to airlines, don't you? Sort of KLM and Air France, is that correct?
Indeed, yes, absolutely. Yeah. I should be representing Air France more today, as you can tell with the Eiffel Tower view in the background.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
And Hannah, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Hannah Miles. I am the Group Health and Safety Manager at Clermont Hotel Group. I've been doing this job now for 5 years, and I'm heavily involved. I'm the lead for our organisation in terms of accessibility and how we arrange that across our 17 hotels that are within London and just outside of the M25. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation.
Brilliant. And again, to all of you, thank you very much for joining us. We do have a Q&A function. Please put questions in there as we go. Depending on time, we'll try and answer them at the end. But whatever happens, they will get answered through the chat function. So let's kind of set the scene. When we refer to accessible sports travel, we're talking about a journey that starts long before a staff member or athlete arrives at an event. From the booking process to airports, flights, hotels, and finally to the stadium or training facility. Each stage of the trip needs to be considered. So to start us off, I think it'd be a good idea to hear how each of you sees that journey and where the biggest issues or opportunities for progress lie. Mark, we'll start with you. From your perspective, what does an accessible sports travel experience look like?
For me, accessible sports travel is free flowing. It's easy. It doesn't differ from someone from the general public checking in, getting onto a plane, getting to the other end, getting to a hotel, getting to their hotel room. Often this isn't the case. Obviously, we do travel with quite a few extra sort of bags, sports equipment, which I appreciate takes a bit more time to either check in or to get to the place you need it to be. But yeah, for me, check-in is nice and smooth. You're met with someone that's friendly. They understand that there is a wide range of needs and different disabilities, and I think that's one of the challenges that I've sort of come across over the years, that when you're checking in or you go to a hotel, they see someone in a chair and it's like, okay, we have a wheelchair user, and that's everyone sort of under the same umbrella. Everyone has obviously different needs and different requirements. And there's a lot of general questions that you're asked, which are absolutely fine. It's better to get more information from that person than kind of assume or not ask those questions. But yeah, for me, it would be a nice free flowing experience where you're not waiting at the check-in desk much longer than someone from the general public, or you're getting to check-in and you're thinking, okay, how long is this going to take? I've got to get to my flight is taking off in this, check-in's going to take this long. And then sometimes in the past, some of my experiences, I've actually got to the airport a lot earlier than I needed to, just to sort of have that time, just in case it doesn't go as smoothly as I hoped.
Perfect. And I can really understand, the whole easy, free flow of that. William, your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'd like to give just a little bit of context from an airline point of view for Air France, basically. So just to give you an idea of the volume and where we're talking about here, basically. So in 2024, around 700,000 customers with a disability who declare their situation travel with Air France. And that's an increase of 27% compared to the previous year, compared to 2023. Altogether, they represent about 1.5% of all our customers, just to give you a bit of an idea of the volume here. And I think, like Mark said, there are different type of disabilities that we need to also look at. So I have a breakdown here, which is quite interesting. 95% of all our customers basically had a motor disability, 2% a visual disability, 1.6% a hearing disability, 1.5% we're talking about mental, cognitive, or psychological disability. 1% only were traveling with a guide or an assistance dog, and about 0.9% travel with a respiratory or some sort of medical device, or even on a stretcher, actually. So in terms of accessible sport experience, I think it starts well before takeoff, like Mark said also. So first of all, we look at a very simplified booking process. So we're lucky to have an expert department at Air France called Saphir. And the Saphir's team is a team basically of advisors based in France and in 20 countries worldwide. Air France customer can contact them free of charge during the opening hours. So it's all applicable according to each country, and all the details are on our website. They also deal with specific measures in terms of luggage, equipment, as well as for guide or assistance dog. So in addition, Air France provides airport assistance service, priority channel, and that's supported by accessible infrastructures. We also focus on inclusive cabin design to allow passengers to settle in easily on board and very much to enjoy the same travel experience than any other passenger. Of course, there are challenges. We can talk about that in more details. But another important point is also the accessible digital experience. So we want to ensure there's a seamless online and mobile app services available for passengers. Of course, the main thing, I say, probably the most important thing, I would say, is about staff training and awareness. So this is key to ensure all passengers with disabilities are their needs met and treated with consideration. So I'd say all in all, it's about smooth coordination between all stakeholders, the airlines, the airports, and all the service providers to ensure the safe, seamless, and fully inclusive journey.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. It's interesting to hear those figures. Hannah, your take on this?
I think from our perspective, looking as a hotel business at the needs of our accessible guests and sports people alike, for us, their journey with us starts before they arrive at the door. As William said, it's part of the booking process. So the earlier we are made aware of anybody's requirements, because as I say, they're individual to each person. So the earlier our RSC team can reach out and obtain what those individuals' requirements are, the better we can plan for them. Because ultimately, what we want from our perspective is when we do get people with accessible needs arrive at our hotels, and Mark touched on this as a need or a want, is we want that process to be seamless and exactly the same process, obviously with its adaptations, that what you would get for a member of the general public or what we'd consider a more able-bodied person. And so for us, that starts with letting us know your requirements prior to your arrival. And then when you are here, it is that quick conversation. This is what we've set up for you based on your request. This is what we also have available. and then allowing that booking and that guest to stay and have the best experience they can. I think from us as a hotel, or generally for hotels, there are sometimes challenges to this, which maybe the general public wouldn't be aware of. And they're things like adapting our buildings. So it's more the legislative side for us. And that there's this idea that all buildings should be accessible. And I completely agree. But sometimes we're dealing with like grade 2 listed buildings. And the challenges we have to overcome to make those buildings accessible can be quite intense, quite lengthy, and quite costly. So they don't prevent, but they are barriers and make things take a little bit longer than we would like. But ultimately, we want the guest experience to be completely seamless. And our goal is to make anybody traveling with accessibility needs be able to operate as independently as they wish or as they are able to. We don't like ring a bell when you get here, we'll put a ramp out, etc. We understand that some businesses only options, but we do our best to remove those individual barriers and things like Mark touched on. That means your wait times are going to be longer, your access is going to be more difficult, things like that. Just removing those barriers. And as I say, ultimately our goal is allowing people to be independent during their stay with us.
And again, that's really an interesting area in regard to some of the challenges you face too. William, I know we've touched on it already, but sort of accessibility from the beginning of the journey is paramount. How do you ensure the needs of para athletes are understood and met through the booking and flight process? I appreciate you touched on it, but if there's anything else that you want to add to that area.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, John. So preparation is key to addressing para athletes' needs. So since 2001, Air France has offered Sapphire service. So I mentioned and introduced this department earlier. So we're talking about over 20 years of experience helping and basically facilitating travel and transport in general. So the Sapphire team personalize their response to customers with disability. They give assistance in the reservation process. They offer guidance, additional information. They also work closely with the medical service and the special transport service for specific approval. So this is well known among sports delegations. During the Paralympic Games, so that was in 24 last year, it enabled Air France to transport over 2,000 Paralympic athletes. That's about 35% of all participants. And we're talking about a total of about 600 wheelchairs. Also, as an organization, Air France recognizes the sunflower symbol from the Hidden Disability Sunflower Program. So it really helps to discreetly identify travelers with non-visible disability who might need assistance at some point during their journey. And finally, it's all about the staff, both at the airport and on board, receiving dedicated disability training to better understand and anticipate the needs of every client. And always a continuous attention to inclusion and respect.
And again, it's really interesting to hear, especially around the Paralympic Games in regard to the transportation of equipment. It's certainly the most complex area of travel that we look after, and does take some understanding, but is such a lifeline for athletes. Just very briefly, the main challenges in transporting mobility equipment. How are you addressing those?
Yeah, so it's transporting equipment is especially wheelchairs is a major challenge for Air France. It's both in terms of logistics, but also in terms of human consideration. So these devices are essential to the autonomy of travelers with disability. And it requires flawless and careful handling. So the main challenge is, first of all, it's to the variety of equipment. So Paralympic athletes often travel with two wheelchairs, in fact, one for daily use and one for competition. So the point is about, how do we protect the integrity of the equipment? We know that wheelchairs can be fragile. Any damage can have significant consequences for the athletes. There are also, as you know, diversity of the wheelchair types. You get electric models, for instance, which contain batteries, and they are classified in the eyes of the airline as dangerous goods. So they require specific procedures, specialized handling due to their weight as well. Another important point is the prompt and the direct return on arrival, so that each customer can retrieve their wheelchair right at the aircraft door. That's key, a key element as well. Finally, I think there is also there are some gaps and challenges out there in terms of like the consistency that you experience during travel. So there is a lot of international consistency that we need to look at. The regulation, the processes will be different from one country to another. So to meet those challenges, Air France, we have, I mean, of course, lots of actions in place. It's about the personalization of each affected customer, enhanced training as well. You know, our teams on the ground, know how to handle and to manage mobility equipment. We work hand in hand with partner airports as well. There's lots of investment in infrastructure. And finally, I think probably the most important aspect would be continuous improvement in terms of collecting feedback from the customer, from the operational team. And the goal is very clear, John. It's about ensuring safe, respectful transport of the equipment to support clients and the trust and their autonomy, basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Mark, more over to you. We often hear stories like Paralympian Tanni Gray-Thompson's about, as William mentioned, some inconsistent experiences, boarding, deplaning, even accessing a seat. Have you seen progress on this front, or are we still seeing perhaps too much inconsistency?
I think over the years it's definitely got better, and you can't help it. Sometimes there are things that are out of people's control that doesn't allow the process to happen as smoothly as everyone would like, and I appreciate that. Everyday life things do happen. I think there's still a few frustrations around, especially at the airport, and this is where maybe my lack of understanding around, is it the airline or is it the airport itself with their regulations? But when you're checking in your oversized sort of sports chair, it can be quite a lengthy process of sometimes. So for example, like at Terminal 5, the oversize will take your chair for you and take it down, and that's sort of like an easy process. You kind of drop it off and then you can continue with your sort of check-in and go through security. Other terminals at Heathrow, and I'm not just calling out Heathrow here, but yeah, there's other terminals that you have to stay with your chair, and you have to go down, it seems like, into a bunker, go down in a lift, go sort of out the back, and you kind of find yourself in some strange place with everyone sort of walking around, and they have to then manually search your chair, which I totally understand that needs to be done for the safety of everyone traveling. But sometimes you're waiting there for sort of 30-40 minutes, and then suddenly you're having to rush through security, and it all becomes a bit of a panic. And you kind of you speak to the people that you're dealing with, and it's very much of like, but we need to do this, and I don't know if it's a bit of a lack of understanding or lack of urgency. This is what they do all day, but for some traveling athletes, they might have needs before they actually get on the plane, and if suddenly you feel rushed, or it just makes the experience a little bit more anxious for some sort of athletes with different disabilities. So it's definitely improving. Like there was over the years, there's been quite a few times where my day chair hasn't come up to the door, and then suddenly I'm like, okay, so then I'm in the hands of somebody else. So I have to transfer into an airport chair, and I have to be pushed around, and I'm sort of sitting there thinking, I'm a very independent person, and I want, if I want to go to the toilet, I will take myself to the toilet, rather than saying, excuse me, can you push me into the toilet, and then I'm done. And so there's a few times, and that's like just I guess the understanding of that day chair is my legs, and that gets me around the airport. That gives me that independence. It gives me the freedom to continue with my journey. And if that's just taken away from you because someone, again, this is, I'm not saying anyone's done this, but couldn't be bothered to put it onto the conveyor belt, or oh, there's 3 day chairs, oh, I'll just put them on the oversize, and then that person can get them in with the rest of their bags. And it's like, I think the biggest thing is, yeah, is that understanding of that's what our independence is, and that's what we rely on. And it's yeah, it's a little thing. It might see a little thing to somebody of, okay, I can't get the chair up, so I'm just going to send it. But actually, it's like, for me, it's huge.
But you're absolutely right. It's about that. We're back to that dignified travel. You want to be able to be completely independent, and you want to have the dignity to be able to do what you want to do. And if you haven't got a day chair at the top of the aircraft steps, or at the, as you come off the aircraft, then that must make that really difficult. And I'm guessing it probably happens some of the time, but not all of the time. And it's the not all of the time that kind of causes the issue.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, touch wood, I've been very lucky over the years. It's only happened a few times, and I've travelled for the last 20 odd years as a wheelchair user. Um, so yeah, I've been quite fortunate, but yeah, there are stories out there that when you arrive at a tennis tournament, you see someone in a chair that's not their own, because you kind of get used to who's in what, and it's like, yeah, the airline it got broke on travel, and suddenly they're in a big chair that they can't then get through doors, or they can't transfer. And
Yeah.
yeah, you kind of just pray and hope that you leave in your equipment in someone else's hands, and you're just sort of like, well, hopefully we get to the other end and it's all okay. And like I said, touch wood, it's not happened too many times, but yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll say it's still happening, I guess. And Hannah, I guess once an athlete lands, the hotel becomes their base. As we mentioned, beyond the basics, sort of what are the key features that make a hotel stay truly accessible?
I think for us, we obviously we have legislation and guidance that tells us kind of what our bathroom should look like and widths that doors need to be and things like that. So we have some standards and some guidance. But from our perspective, what makes it truly accessible is considering the points that are outside of that, but maybe people that don't look at it from a disabled point of view wouldn't consider. And for us, there are things like, having bedrooms that don't have carpet, have a floor that's potentially easier to navigate with a wheelchair. The height of the tables within our food and beverage outlets, so our restaurant and our breakfast areas, making sure they are a suitable height for somebody with a wheelchair to be able to, sit at, and they're adequate and they work. So for us to say, it's about, yes, you take the guidance and the legislation and you use that as your base level, and that's almost your minimum, and to make sure you get the basics right. But then for us, it's really important to, as I say, and we take on people's feedback. We get all the areas tested and tried to have that real life experience of actually what is it like. And how independently are you able to sort of maneuver around the hotel and enjoy your stay while you're with us. Another part of that, we have to consider that, again, that the general public or the person with the needs might not see, is also we have to consider, how do we assist that person best during an emergency? And predominantly our biggest focus on this is around fire. So we also have to look at the other things like stairwells and how we safely evacuate people. And they are, again, sometimes a barrier that mean we have to overcome or make quite heavy adjustments or investments to be able to accommodate for people with various disabilities. But yeah, ultimately to us, again, it's all about that seamless, independent experience where we've also thought of the little things and ensured your safety that you probably don't realize, or I'd say 90% to 95% of our guests who have accessibility needs, they won't realize them because there's no emergency situation, but we do make sure that they are just as seamless as your experience that you recognize.
It really is a complex area, isn't it? And more than you kind of think of. But hospitality is all about people. How do you train your teams to sort of interact confidently and respectfully with disabled guests?
So we use a multitude of methods for training this out, sort of from your standard online training, which covers the basics, to the more in-person detail training. Um, but again, we have like a key theme and message that runs through this. And that is to just, talk to people. Because very often we find that you can sometimes get this wrong when you make assumptions for somebody based on what you know about their disability, which compared to them is going to be limited. And Mark touched on it earlier that even people with similar disabilities, so maybe wheelchair users, all have very individual needs. So the key theme of the training is, the confidence to have that conversation with the person with the needs. No one can tell you what they need better than they can. But again, you get into this area where people don't want to say the wrong thing. So it's all about confidence building. We set up that level of awareness and then build the confidence to have these conversations, and just ask, essentially.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Mark, you've lived this reality firsthand. Can you share some of the biggest challenges you or colleagues or other athletes have faced when staying away?
Um, yeah, I've stayed in lots and lots of hotels around the world, and yeah, experiences have overall been very, very good. I think the times are obviously information being sent beforehand. Obviously, people book at different times, so there are times where maybe all the accessible rooms have been booked, and I think that's where I've had a few mixed experiences with someone being more open to helping, and someone being a little bit like, "Oh, this is a bit of an inconvenience. There's nothing we can do. That's the room. That's the only room we've got." Um, and I think, like Hannah said, that the key is just asking those questions, asking, what do you need? Because there's quite a few times where some people prefer a bath, some people prefer a shower, but that maybe that's not even possible. So it's like, okay, we have a bath. How can we maybe adapt that? Or we have a shower. And for me, for my needs, it's quite a simple fix in terms of if there's a shower that doesn't have a shower seat, could I have a chair to use in the shower? And something like that suddenly transforms the bathroom of, okay, I can't even have a shower in this bathroom to actually, yeah, this is great. I can have a shower when I need and stuff like that. And I think the other thing I've experienced in some rooms, and again, this is stay in when accessible rooms aren't available, because that happens. I've played tennis tournaments where we've had the whole tournament in one hotel, and you kind of have 40 players in a hotel room and in a hotel, and yeah, there's not 40 accessible rooms, so you kind of that's for the tournament to again give the information and get the information beforehand to see who needs what, who's the maybe has more needs than somebody else. And yeah, I think again, it's like when you're going down to breakfast, like those tables that you're able to get under, and um, just asking to not be able to sit in too far away from the if it's a buffet, because then you have to carry things on your lap, or you kind of got a coffee and you're kind of trying to maneuver your chair and get to the table, and it's yeah, it's all those kind of those little things that yeah maybe people again don't think about, but if there's training out there, then that's fantastic, and yeah, just being more aware, I think.
And again, areas that perhaps I certainly haven't thought about from that point of view. And we've talked about sort of different parts of the journey. Mark, has there been sort of one improvement you've seen recently that's really made a difference?
Um, I think like Hannah again said, I think it's people are becoming more confident in asking what the needs are, and I think that is just such a huge thing. It like everyone doesn't like those awkward conversations, and you don't want to belittle somebody by saying how can we help you, but it's just like that's just a great question of like what are your needs? Do you need anything on top of kind of the standard procedure? So I think those conversations, and I think for me, as the Paralympic Games and as disability as awareness is happening more and more, it's becoming a little bit more acceptable in society to have those conversations, whereas before it was very like, yeah, awkward conversation. If I don't need to have it, I won't have it. But actually, just to have that conversation, and I think the openness and the friendliness of check-in staff is definitely something that I've seen over the years that has improved.
And yeah, the old adage, it's good to talk, eh?
Yeah.
It makes a difference. So we'll just wrap up in regard to some sort of future advice. And we'll start with you, Mark, but we'll certainly go with William and Hannah too. In regard to sports organisations who want to make their travel and accommodation more inclusive, what are pieces of advice that you could offer?
I think it sounds really simple, but to make it as easy as possible. And like again, there are some airlines and there are some hotels that if you are disabled, you have to call somebody, you have to do 5 or 6 extra forms. And is there kind of a very basic way of, I'm disabled, these are my needs. It's quite an easy sort of drop down menu. And again, I appreciate there's so many vast disabilities out there, but yeah, like for me, if I'm gonna check in, I don't want to have to be on hold to the disability line for half an hour to then just to say I'm in a wheelchair, I'm a carry on, and etc. etc. So I think the ease of how the information is passed on from the traveller onto the airlines or the hotels, if that's something that is more accessible to everyone, I think that would be great. I think it's that the key thing is that information, that as much time as they have to know your needs.
No, absolutely. William, your thoughts?
I'd say the main advice is really to view accessibility as a holistic experience. It's not just a series of isolated initiatives or adjustments you make. So for that, essentially, it's important to design solutions that are directly, for people directly concerned by this sort of areas, to offer adapted options at every stage of the journey. For air travel, of course, it's very important, but also in terms of accommodation, that it's inclusive for all. We need to ensure also the physical accessibility of spaces, and I think, like Mark mentioned, is the communication adapted for everyone in that regard. I can't stress too much the fact that the training as well is so important. Training to be able to listen, understand, and meet the specific needs of every passenger. And we can't do that without having a regular sort of like feedback to continuously improve those services. So I'd say, in a nutshell, it's just not a one-off measure, but it should be completely integrated, evolving approach centered on everyone's sort of like experience.
No, absolutely. And Hannah?
So I think my advice to a sports organisation arranging the travel, particularly staying in hotels, would be tell us what you need. Okay, we work in hospitality. We live and breathe, and the purpose of most of our work days is to provide a great guest experience. And if we have to tailor that to different guests, we're more than happy to do that. But please just reach out and tell us what you need. And if we do miss the mark on occasion, as can sometimes happen, it's a world that we're all navigating now. Let us know, work with us to get it better, and we'll improve the experience then for everybody.
And I think communication is paramount. We'll always talk about the earlier you can book, as much information, all those types of things we've just mentioned. But communication is at the key of it, for sure. There are a couple of questions in the chat, but I'm actually gonna use a personal one, if I may. And it's for Mark. I was chatting to a friend of mine at the weekend, mentioned this call. He's got an 11-year-old who's in a wheelchair and wants to talk about or think about possibly playing tennis. Where do they start? What's the entry area?
My advice is there's obviously get down to your local tennis centre. Most tennis centres now across the country do have some sports chairs available. If that's not the case, then the LTA, if you get in contact with the LTA, we have our own disability pathway manager that actually helps find venues that are accessible. And I think for me, when I first started, is having that, again, like we're talking, is that knowledge and that training. If you turn up to a tennis center and there's a coach that has never seen wheelchair tennis before and is kind of a little bit scared of, I don't want to do anything wrong here, compared to if you turn up to a tennis center and someone's had that bit of training and then they're a bit more comfortable delivering a session. But yeah, contact the LTA, yeah, get playing, get out there, try it. And
Absolutely.
yeah, for me, tennis is great. You can play with your friends. I play with friends and family. I play with my son, and yeah, it's great. It's very inclusive, and but yeah, my advice is to get on the court and try it.
Brilliant. Thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. It's been really interesting. Thank you to Mark. Thank you to William. Thank you to Hannah. We hope you've enjoyed today's discussion. Hopefully it's given you some insight and some ideas and inspiration. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to continuing the conversation. To find out more, Grador Sports website is sports.gdg.travel. And we will be replying on the Q&A to the questions that have come in. So many thanks, and we look forward to seeing you again sometime soon.